Chapter 1. Into the Pages. Park Won had reclined on the plush cushions of her cozy apartment, nestled in the heart of bustling Seoul. With the soft glow of the lamp casting warm hues across the room, she found solace in the embrace of her favorite pastime, immersing herself in the world of literature. The shelves that adorned her walls were a testament to her passion, housing a myriad of books that whispered stories of distant lands and forgotten times. Tonight, however, it was a particular Korean novel that held her captive. Its cover, adorned with elegant calligraphy and vibrant illustrations, had beckoned to her from the shelves of a quaint bookstore she often frequented. Little did she anticipate the journey those pages would take her on. As she turned each page with delicate anticipation, her imagination soared, weaving through the words that painted vivid images in her mind. The story, set in a bygone era, unfolded like a delicate tapestry of intrigue and romance. Eun had found herself ensnared by the tale of the enigmatic wife of Duke Argentine, her heart quickening with each twist and turn of the plot. The characters danced before her eyes, their voices echoing in the silence of her apartment, as though they were whispering their secrets solely to her. Eun could feel the tension mounting, the palpable sense of impending revelation hanging heavy in the air. Outside her window, the city thrummed with life, but within the confines of her sanctuary, time seemed to stand still. Lost in the labyrinth of words, she surrendered herself to the whims of the narrative, eager to uncover its every hidden treasure. Hours passed unnoticed, the passage of time measured only by the gentle rhythm of her breath and the occasional flutter of a page. The world beyond her walls faded into obscurity as she delved deeper into the depths of the novel, her senses consumed by the allure of its prose. And then, just as the clock struck midnight, a sudden gust of wind swept through the open window, causing the curtains to billow like ethereal specters. Startled from her reverie, Eun had glanced up, her heart pounding in her chest as though sensing the onset of an unseen storm. But it was not the wind alone that sent shivers down her spine. As she turned her gaze back to the pages before her, she felt a strange sensation wash over her, as though the boundary between fiction and reality had blurred into oblivion. In that fleeting moment, a whisper of doubt crept into her mind, a seed of uncertainty that took root in the fertile soil of her imagination. Could it be possible, she wondered, for the world of the novel to reach out and touch her own? With trembling fingers, she reached out to grasp the book, its weight heavy in her hands as though laden with the secrets of an ancient tome. And then, with a hesitant breath, she uttered the words that would change her fate forever. "Show me," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the symphony of the night. And in that instant, as though in response to her plea, the world around her began to shift and sway, as though caught in the throes of a waking dream. Colors blurred together, shapes blurred and contorted, until reality itself seemed to warp and bend to the will of unseen forces. Eunhae's pulse quickened, her senses reeling as she found herself standing on the threshold of a realm unknown. Before her stretched a landscape straight from the pages of the novel, its every detail etched with a clarity that defied explanation. She took a tentative step forward, the ground beneath her feet firm and solid despite the surreal nature of her surroundings. The air hummed with an otherworldly energy, charged with the promise of adventure and discovery. With each passing moment, Eun had felt herself being drawn deeper into the heart of this strange new world, her curiosity eclipsing any fear or doubt that lingered in her mind. For she knew, deep down, that she had been granted a rare opportunity, a chance to step beyond the confines of her ordinary existence and into the pages of destiny. And so, with a newfound resolve burning bright within her, she set forth into the unknown, her journey unfolding like the turning of a page in the story of her own life. Chapter 2. A Fatal Revelation. Park Won-hae's fingers trembled slightly as they traced the lines of text on the weathered pages of the novel, her breath caught in anticipation of what lay ahead. The story had already ensnared her with its intricate web of deceit and desire, but little did she know that the most shocking revelation was yet to come. As she continued to read, each word etched itself into her consciousness, drawing her deeper into the labyrinth of the narrative. The wife of Duke Argentine, a figure shrouded in mystery and grace, had captivated her with her resilience in the face of adversity. But it was the sudden twist of fate that awaited her that would leave Eun-hye reeling with disbelief. In a moment of chilling clarity, the truth was laid bare before her eyes. The clandestine affair between the Duke and the protagonist's own cousin unfurled like a poisonous vine, entwining itself around the very fabric of their lives. Eun-hye's heart lurched in her chest as she grappled with the implications of such betrayal, her mind racing to comprehend the depths of human deceit. But it was not the revelation alone that sent shivers down her spine. As she turned the pages with trembling hands, a sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air, like a storm cloud on the brink of unleashing its fury upon an unsuspecting world. For she knew, deep down, that the unraveling of this dark secret would come at a price far greater than any could imagine. And then, just as she reached the climax of the narrative, a sudden chill swept through the room, causing goosebumps to rise on her skin like whispers of warning from unseen specters. Startled, she glanced up from the pages, her eyes wide with apprehension, as though sensing the approach of an invisible force. But it was too late to turn back now. With a hesitant breath, she returned her gaze to the book, her pulse quickening with each passing moment, as though racing to meet the inevitable twist that awaited her. And then, with a sudden jolt, it happened. The words on the page seemed to shimmer and shift before her eyes, as though infused with a life of their own. Eun-hye blinked in disbelief, her mind struggling to reconcile the surreal spectacle unfolding before her. And then, with dawning horror, she realized the truth. She was no longer merely a reader, passively observing the events of the novel from a safe distance. She had become a part of the story itself, a player in the twisted game of fate that threatened to consume them all. As the realization washed over her like a tidal wave, Eun-hye's heart raced with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. For she knew, deep down, that she was now bound to the characters and their fates in ways she could never have imagined. With a newfound sense of purpose burning bright within her, she turned her attention back to the pages before her resolve steeled by the knowledge that she alone held the key to unraveling the mysteries that lay hidden within the shadows. But little did she know that the greatest revelation of all was yet to come, a twist of fate that would leave her world shattered and her soul forever changed. And as she read on, oblivious to the storm that loomed on the horizon, she could only pray that she would emerge unscathed from the darkness that threatened to consume them all. Chapter 3. A Leap into Fiction. The air crackled with an electric energy as Park Won-hye's surroundings shifted and contorted before her very eyes. In an inexplicable twist of fate, she found herself ripped from the comfort of her cozy apartment and thrust into the heart of the very world she had been reading about. For a moment, but stretched into eternity, Eun-hye stood frozen in disbelief, her mind struggling to process the surreal spectacle unfolding before her. Gone were the familiar sights and sounds of her everyday existence, replaced instead by the opulent grandeur of the Duke's manor as described in the novel. The walls rose high around her, adorned with lavish tapestries and gilded portraits that seemed to watch her every move with silent scrutiny. The air was heavy with the scent of jasmine and sandalwood, mingling with the faint aroma of candle wax that permeated the halls. Panic surged through Eun-hye's veins as she took in her surroundings, her heart pounding in her chest like a drumbeat of impending doom. How did she come to be here? She wondered, trapped within the confines of a world that existed only within the pages of a book. But there was no time for questions or doubts, for even as she grappled with the enormity of her predicament, the world around her continued to shift and sway, as though caught in the throes of an unseen force. With trembling limbs, Eun-hae took a tentative step forward, the cold marble floor cool beneath her feet as she ventured further into the heart of the manor. Her senses were assaulted on all sides, the sights and sounds of this strange new world threatening to overwhelm her fragile grasp on reality. And then, just as she reached the threshold of the grand ballroom, a voice echoed through the corridors, sending shivers down her spine like icy tendrils of fear. It was the voice of the Duke, cold and commanding, as though borne on the wings of a winter's gale. With a sinking heart, Eun-hae realized the truth. She had assumed the role of the central character in the novel, the wife of Duke Argentine herself. But how was such a thing possible? She wondered, her mind spinning with 1,000 unanswered questions. But there was no time to dwell on the mysteries of her newfound existence, for even as she stood rooted to the spot, the world around her continued to shift and warp, as though guided by the unseen hand of fate itself. And so, with a courage born of desperation, Eun-hae stepped into the grand ballroom, her heart racing with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. For she knew, deep down, that her fate was now inexorably intertwined with that of the characters in the novel, bound together by the threads of destiny that wove through the tapestry of their lives. As she entered the room, all eyes turned to her, their gazes filled with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. For she was not the woman they knew, the dutiful wife who had played her part with silent grace for so many years. She was an interloper, an outsider thrust into their midst without warning or explanation. But despite the whispers that echoed through the room like the rustling of leaves in the wind, Eun-hae refused to cower in the face of adversity. For she knew that she alone held the power to shape her own destiny, to forge a path through the darkness that threatened to engulf them all. And so, with her head held high and her heart afire with determination, she took her place at the Duke's side, ready to face whatever trials lay ahead. For she was Park Eun-hae, and she would not be content to merely exist within the pages of someone else's story. Chapter 4. The Cold Calculation. Park Eun-hae stood at the threshold of the Duke's study, her heart heavy with trepidation as she awaited his summons. The events of the past hours had blurred together in a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief, leaving her grappling with the harsh reality of her situation. She had learned of her impending marriage to the aristocrat, a man whose heart belonged to another, a cruel twist of fate that threatened to unravel the very fabric of her existence. Trapped in a union devoid of love, she found herself thrust into a world of opulence and deceit, where appearances were everything and alliances were forged with cold calculation. As she entered the study, her footsteps echoing softly against the polished marble floor, Eun-hae felt a shiver run down her spine at the sight of the Duke seated behind his desk, his expression unreadable beneath the veneer of aristocratic charm. "Ah, my dear," he said, his voice smooth as silk as he gestured for her to take a seat opposite him. "I trust you are settling in well." Eun-hae forced a smile, her fingers trembling slightly as she clasped them in her lap. "Yes, Your Grace," she replied, her tone carefully neutral. "The manner is exquisite." The Duke's lips curved into a faint smile, though there was a glint of something predatory in his eyes that sent a shiver down her spine. "I am pleased to hear it," he said, his voice like honey poison. "But enough pleasantries. We have matters of greater importance to discuss." And with those words, he launched into a detailed account of their impending marriage, his words ringing hollow in Eun-hae's ears like the tolling of a funeral bell. She listened in silence as he outlined his plans for their future together, his voice a monotone drone that seemed to stretch on for eternity. But even as she nodded along with feigned acquiescence, her mind raced with 1,000 unanswered questions. How had she come to be entangled in this web of deceit and betrayal? And what role did she play in the Duke's sinister machinations? As the meeting drew to a close, Eun-hae rose to her feet, her resolve steeled by the knowledge that she alone held the key to her own destiny. She may have been thrust into this world against her will, but she refused to be a pawn in the Duke's twisted game. With a polite curtsy, she bid him farewell and made her way back to her chambers, her thoughts consumed by the daunting task that lay ahead. For she knew that navigating the treacherous waters of aristocratic society would require all of her cunning and guile, armed only with the knowledge gleaned from the novel that had become her unwitting guide. And so, as she settled into her ornate four-poster bed, the weight of her newfound responsibilities pressing heavily upon her shoulders, Eunha vowed to tread carefully in the days to come. For she was Park Eunha, and though she may have been cast into a world not of her choosing, she would carve out her own path amidst the shadows of deceit and deception. Chapter 5. A Duchess's Dilemma. The first rays of dawn filtered through the intricately carved lattice window, casting a golden hue upon the opulent chambers that had become Park Eun-hae's gilded cage. As she stirred from her slumber, her mind heavy with the weight of the days that lay ahead, she knew that the time had come to face the daunting dilemma that loomed before her. How could she alter the course of fate without unraveling the delicate threads of society? It was a question that had haunted her every waking moment since her arrival in this strange new world, a world where the whims of the aristocracy held sway over the lives of those beneath them. With a heavy sigh, Eunha rose from her bed, the cool silk of her nightgown brushing against her skin like a whisper of reassurance in the pre-dawn stillness. Outside her window, the city stirred to life with the promise of a new day, but within the confines of her chambers, a different kind of life awaited her, one fraught with uncertainty and danger at every turn. As she dressed in the elaborate finery befitting her new station as the Duchess of Argentine, Eunha's thoughts drifted back to the events of the previous day. The Duke's words had lingered in her mind like a specter, a constant reminder of the role she was expected to play in his grand scheme of power and prestige. But she refused to be a mere pawn in his game, a puppet dancing to the whims of his cruel desires. For she knew that her destiny was hers alone to shape, and she would not rest until she had wrested control from the hands of fate itself. And so, with a steely resolve burning bright within her, Eunha set forth into the labyrinth of aristocratic society, her every move calculated with the precision of a master strategist. She attended lavish balls and extravagant soirees, her smile a mask to hide the turmoil that churned beneath the surface. But amidst the glittering facade of high society, danger lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike when least expected. Rumors swirled like dark whispers through the halls of the manor, hinting at hidden agendas and ulterior motives that threatened to tear apart the fragile peace that held their world together. With each passing day, Eunha found herself walking a tightrope between loyalty and betrayal, her every decision weighed against the consequences that loomed on the horizon. For she knew that one misstep could spell disaster, not only for herself, but for those she held dear. And yet, despite the ever-present danger that lurked around every corner, Eunha refused to succumb to despair. For she was a woman of strength and resilience, forged in the fires of adversity and tempered by the trials of fate. With each passing day, she drew closer to uncovering the truth that lay hidden beneath the veneer of aristocratic privilege, her determination unyielding in the face of insurmountable odds. And though the path ahead was fraught with peril, she would not falter in her quest for justice and redemption. For she was Park Eun-ha, the Duchess of Argentine, and though the road ahead may be fraught with danger and uncertainty, she would face it head-on with courage and conviction. And in the end, she would emerge victorious, her spirit unbroken, and her legacy secure for generations to come.